Welcome to Splitting Hairs. Lockdown, stage 4 restrictions, Melbourne. Sorry everyone, audio only today, so we won't get to see Annabelle's incredibly enthusiastic facial expressions. So Annabelle, what have we got today?
Well, just first off, I like the audio only because I'm 100% maybe a little bit in my pajamas right now, so I'm fine.
I think we're all in our pajamas in Melbourne at the moment. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful, freeing sort of time, isn't it?
Yeah, but we pre-recorded a lot of video, which is what we've released so far, and as we're recording this, we'll be showing another one of your slash and burn videos, which I have no creative control over.
None.
Which I'm fine with. You can do whatever you want.
Yes. And look, bear in mind that those videos are for people like me with absolutely no attention span anymore. You would think that because I'm old, I would want the really long form, slow release ones. But no, I have no patience in my life. So that's my motivation for doing the slash and burn. And what's your motivation for the long form? Let's talk about that.
I like it. I like that you can sit down and it's like people are in the room there, kinda, but you can just see on my face me thinking for 20 minutes.
Oh, is that what you're doing in your mind with that face? Oh.
Yeah, that's the nice way of putting it. But it's just, it's good just to, people can watch the full conversation unfold, because when we would have these, so the origin of this whole thing was us talking on Messenger, and those are long conversations, and sometimes I'd get your message, I'd say to you, all right, I'm going to think about my reply. I'd spend the whole day thinking about my reply, and I would write it out, making sure that I answered every single one of your points, and then I would hit send, and I would just wait there for, okay, she's seen it, okay, she's going to reply, and just don't look at my phone because she might be mad that I was a little bit blunt in my response. So we don't have the whole day for me to sit there and think of a response, but, trying to nut that down into half an hour or something, or...
the long 5 minutes in my case.
Yeah, even shorter for you, but it's somewhat or hopefully organic.
Well, I reckon today's going to be organic. What is our topic today?
All right, I posed you a question, and let me just premise by saying this is actually something that I'd never actually thought of before. But the question is, are classical musicians creative?
Good one.
And I'm a creative personality, but I've never equated classical music to creativity. To be fair, I've never actually properly thought about it. And we have already had a conversation on this, but we thought we would dive into it again. And I've written a couple of questions, mainly directed towards you, but, I can probably answer a little bit as well, but from a different perspective.
All right. Question 1.
So, Sarah, have you ever believed you were creative as a classical musician?
Okay. Like you, I never thought about it too much growing up. Classical music was all over our household. We had harpsichords and pianos everywhere and violins, and Dad was a conductor, and I never thought about whether they were all creating things. I just grew up immersed in it. So I guess I took a lot of it for granted and never thought about what it meant to me as like an audience. Because a lot of people who don't grow up in a musical family, I think they feel like musical people are really magical and it's amazing what they can do. But for me, it was just completely normal to see people play musical instruments, play in orchestras, see my older sister, carving out a career in classical music. So I guess the magic wasn't the same for me. I mean, I loved it, but I didn't really think about it. So I guess I feel like the people who are creative, who I see in my life, are the people who make things or the people who invent things. So I guess creativity is associated with inventiveness in my mind. But classical music, now that I've had a significant career in classical music, I can't say that my creative urges are satisfied in a classical music world. Does that sort of answer it?
I guess. I don't know. I was just thinking that whole time because what you said about growing up around it. I mean, I don't have a single memory in my life where I wasn't playing an instrument, and violin was the first one that I picked, that with piano. So I don't have a memory of when there wasn't music in my life. My sister also learnt an instrument. My dad was a musician. So when I think of people that grow up with nothing, when like with no music in their life or whatever, they may look at musicians and go, yeah, that is creative. But you know how that whole brain split between you can have an analytical brain, like left brain, right brain, or what, right side brain or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think if you're on the other side of that, or however your brain functions, it's like you may just see on the surface level musicians and artists all being under the same umbrella of creative.
Yeah.
But then once you're immersed in it, and again, I've just always been in the music world. That's why I think I've never really thought about it.
And sorry to interrupt. So the goal is for you, is it about creating something, expressing something, or is it more professional like it is for me? Just getting a job done. People are hiring you to play music. They're hiring you. You've got a certain amount of time to complete the task, and then you get paid, because that's sort of what it's like for me, even though I still find the magic in it. So what is it for you? What does it mean to you to be a classical musician? And is it creative for you at all, or is it like a job?
I don't know. It's just always been like learning. So obviously the style of violin that I play is classical. That's the one that I sort of hooked onto, and that's what I love the most. So it's just pursuing that. And I think once you get into the reality of an employed musician, then it really is, oh, I'd love to play that music over there, but I've got a concert next week. I have to know this, whether I like it or not. And one of the things I remember you telling me years ago was, you're not always going to like the music you play because you just have to play it. And I was definitely sat in concerts going, this is an incredibly boring piece, but it's not up to me to play it. I mean, to decide.
To decide.
Yeah.
Right.
But what I said before is just, I've just never, I've always sort of been creative and thought of myself as creative, but I've never equated that to violin playing.
Do you have any other questions about this topic?
Of course I do.
Good girl.
Oh, okay. When and how did you come to believe in your definition of creativity? And I'm sorry, that is somewhat of a loaded question.
No, it's absolutely brilliant question, and it's just come to me. The answer has just come to me in a vision. When I was a kid, I played in my dad's youth orchestra, which is the Queensland Youth Orchestra, still going strong 54 years later. Woohoo! I felt like because the students had so much control over how they play, they took so much pride and responsibility in how they played. The section leaders would always do bowing tutorials. They'd really get into the organisational aspects of it. Sometimes the leaders would take the tutorials if the tutors weren't available. So we all took on this massive responsibility, and that to me felt creative. And besides that, because I lived with Dad, who ran it, John Curro, he and I would talk about what pieces we would do. And I didn't have creative control, but I had input. One year I was leading the orchestra and he said, oh, why don't we do Heldenleben? And I'm like, I don't like that piece. Let's do Scheherazade. Because I was leading the orchestra and I grew up listening to Scheherazade in this beautiful Anne Racklin set of recordings called Fun with Music. And I was obsessed with Scheherazade. But I had never really heard Heldenleben by Strauss. So when he said, oh, let's do Ein Heldenleben, I'm like, no, let's do Scheherazade. And so thankfully he let me do that. And so to me, that felt like I was part of the creative team in a sense. And then, you get older, you go to work. I played in Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra, Queensland Philharmonic, and I saw all these people having a little bit of say, but it wasn't me, because I was just in the section. And so I felt like, I couldn't have a creative role in it unless I was a section leader. And that's okay. Then I played in ACO for a little while where everybody was the boss. Everybody would argue with each other about every point. But that was possible because it was a very small orchestra. So there was time for people to have creative input. So that was interesting. And then I get to the Hong Kong Philharmonic Orchestra, and that was so much fun. It was fantastic. I did a lot of outside projects because within the symphony orchestra, there was absolutely no creative control. I was in the second violins then. So, arguably even more down the ranks.
Second violins are important.
I know Monica's going to hate this.
You need that inner voice. Yeah. They have to play music on the staff. Settle down.
Yes. I know.
No melody for you today, Sarah.
But so, no melodies there. So when I got to Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, I really realised that within the symphony orchestra system, there was no time for everybody to have input. And it was more like the military in the sense that, your admirals make all the decisions and it trickles down, and the infantrymen have to complete the task to get the job done. So it is much more like the military than a creative organisation, which is what a lot of audience members think, that it's a really, you must be so creative. But actually, if you get into a symphony orchestra and you're successful at it, you're probably the sort of person that is happy to take orders. Now, my colleagues all know me.
Wait, can I just pause you there?
Yeah.
Why did it take you that long to realise, orchestras really aren't that creative? I've played in orchestras like uni and stuff like that, and even I realised that. You show up, you play music, you have to follow bowings that aren't yours, that you may or may not like. Separate video coming with that. The conductor really has final say. Like, how'd you get all the way to MSO and then go, oh, yeah?
Because I'd worked in groups that actually allowed a bit of input from the underlings. So I was lucky in that sense. And
but see, leaders, though, they can take an input, but they don't have to actually, they've got no obligation to go, oh, yes, that person there, they've said this.
Yeah, that's a good point. But a really great leader can listen to the insubordinate people like me, sincerely listen and say, okay, well, that person's obviously a leader type, and that person could help me. And I need to be listening to that person because that person has good ideas. So always when I was growing up, if there were people sitting behind me in youth orchestra, I would never put them down if they came up and said, why are we doing that bowing? Why, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. It's like, great, yeah, let's do this. Yes. And it was so great to me that other people cared as much as I did about it. And it forced me to be able to justify my decisions as a leader as well. That's what I loved about these people, because they wanted to be leaders too. And that's that healthy competition. So if you're sitting in that chair, be prepared to take it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
the creativity aspect of this is that symphony orchestras are so much fun at the concert. I mean, it can be very stressful, but overall, it's just such an amazing thing to be able to do that it doesn't matter that you're programming or deciding on bowings. In the end, you just have to all come together and make the best product that you can. So the skill is not the creative skill, it's the executing the plan skill that we all have to have. So, yeah, that's basically...
we're talking specifically a symphony orchestra.
Okay, yeah, good point. We are just talking about that. We're not talking about solo yet or chamber
Not yet. So just a symphony orchestra. Could you pinpoint who the creative is in putting that all together?
Well, in my ideal extremist world in my brain, the creative force is the composer, who's usually dead. So we can't ask him or her their advice. So my approach to realising already composed music is, what did the composer want? But unfortunately, in the early 20th century, or late 19th century, the conductor, who sometimes was the composer, actually. So they had the right to do whatever they want.
Or the soloist was once also,
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember growing up, Dad used to always tell the soloist how to play. I mean, they were students mostly. They were being given these opportunities as students to play concertos. But Dad was like the opposite of conductors normally in the world. He would basically tell them that what they were doing was a bit stupid and it wouldn't work. And they would always listen to him because he was really funny. So that they learnt through him that you've got to follow what's on the page. Let's do what the composer says first, then we can all fit it together, and then I'll follow you. But it has to be a give and take situation. But there are soloists out there who don't feel like that. They feel like they can just do whatever they want, and it's up to the conductor to follow. So it does depend on who has the strongest animal personality, actually.
So if we're not talking about concertos, so is the conductor at all a creative?
I would say there are two kinds of conductors, and yeah, they're both creative. The one conductor is the one expressing their own emotional response to the score, which is the more early 20th century approach to it, like the conductor as this kind of godlike person who has a vision and a connection with the dead composer, and it's all wrapped up in the ego and the self-expression and all of this. And then there's that other kind of conductor that sprang up pretty much during the early music revolution, where conductors or music directors were like, oh, there were all these different instruments in, Beethoven's time. Let's try and put it on like Beethoven would have heard it. So those kinds of conductors, John Eliot Gardiner springs to mind, those kinds of conductors are a slave to a concept of how it might have been like at the time of the composer. But it's still an expression of self. You identify yourself as an early music person or an old school person. So it just depends on your point of view and what kind of recordings you like, whether you think the old school or the new school has more to say. But I still think it's a personal expression of creativity. It's very difficult to know what it sounded like in Beethoven's time.
I feel like it's not a black and white thing. Because if you went classical music is creative, and then said, well, the definition of creative is blah, 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 therefore it is really only that composers can be creative.
Yeah, I do come across like that I think only the composer's creative, yeah.
Which is, like, they are creative. They are the ones coming up with the music and things like that. I'm a bit more broad-termed in that. So what about people programming works and doing creative things within a performance setting of orchestras? And I've got one great example I can tell you, but do you think that there's anything that people can do to, yes, the music might be a Beethoven symphony, which is Beethoven's work, not the conductors or the orchestras, but is there anything a conductor or people that program the concerts can do that is creative?
Yeah, that's don't forget what you're about to say, because I've just got a really quick point, and that is mostly the creative aspect of being in the classical world now is programming, presenting, marketing. You have to make old, dead music totally up to date and relevant. And you still can do that because most of these composers were absolutely cutting edge at the time, and that their concepts still apply today. So the programmers have to be really shrewd now because there's a lot of noise out there. People are, there's so much happening, especially in Melbourne. It's one of these places where the population's not that big, but there's just a massive population of, people presenting music. So symphony orchestras now have to be really clever in their programming and their marketing, and that can be a very, very creative endeavour. So what were you going to say about that?
Well, I just have one example, which I said this to you already, but I remember sitting in Hamer Hall and MSO were playing, and the program piece that was on the ticket was Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. That was what people were going to see. But the piece before it, Andrew Davies conducted, was a slow movement from a Beethoven quartet. His F minor quartet, I think. And I'll link it below in YouTube. And that particular movement ends with the first violin trilling, and then it goes into the quick fourth movement, presto, I think. Well, he programmed it so that it was arranged by, I believe, Brett Dean, and the flute had the trill at the end. And then it ended on a, diminuendo, and then the orchestra started playing the opening to the Sixth Symphony. I've never heard somebody decide to do something like that before in a program, because yes, that was an arrangement of a quartet piece, and yes, it is the Pastoral Symphony, but to perform the two back to back like that in that way was,
Yeah.
Incredible. It was so beautiful, and it was so atmospheric as well. And the other one I remember was when MSO played The Planets a few years ago, and the very, very ending, they had the sopranos in the hallway in Hamer Hall, the stairway, and rather than have them finish singing, they just had the door slightly shut, so that was how the sound ended up dying. And the entire orchestra and every single person sitting there was dead silent for at least a minute afterwards. And that's how you know that the conductors just absolutely controlled all of that to just
Absolutely.
like a standstill moment. I remember the orchestra was just, they just were not moving. Everybody, like, no one was coughing. It was just absolutely just, no one wanted to clap first.
Yeah, fantastic. Was I there?
Yeah, you were there for both.
Thank you for reminding me of my life.
So I'm just saying, like, yes, I do believe composers are the creatives, but there are other facets to classical music and musicians that they can envision that, almost like a director of a movie that has
Absolutely.
that has to envision how it looks before it actually is produced and filmed. And I heard a description of a conductor that really made it click for me about the importance of a conductor. Is they literally conduct the sound the way like a metal, like piece of metal will conduct electricity.
Beautiful.
And they'll be able to, they need to hear what the piece sounds like before it's played. And, you know, I'm not at all a conductor, nor do I have a conductor's personality to understand it. But knowing that a certain family of instruments has to have this articulation, and then they need to blend with that instrument, and blah, 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 to blend that sound together and present it to the listeners.
Yes, if conductors want to, they can be the most fantastic, positive, creative energy when it comes to resurrecting works that are not current. So Sir Andrew is a really fantastic example of that. But he writes music and he arranges music. So he has a lot of skills under his belt to bring to every programming meeting that he has. You know, he rewrote Handel's Messiah, for example. And at first I was really irritated by that idea. I mean, he knows I love him, so I can say all this. He rewrites Handel's Messiah and puts all these, you know, romantic instruments in, like bells and gongs and tambourines and things like that. And at first you're like, oh, it's ridiculous. And then you play it and you hear it and you see how the audience goes absolutely wild. And then you think, well, why didn't he just write his own choral work? Why didn't he do that? It's like, well, because he loves the Messiah so much. But his experience of music is so vast that he just wants to hear the Messiah bigger and better and bolder and stronger. And did you see that concert?
Look, I'm ashamed to say I had a ticket, and that was just one Sunday that I was just like, I just can't be bothered. And I mean, I went to over like 50 concerts one year.
Oh, look, I was just about to say, can I, for all the people listening, can I just say that Annabel does not go to concerts? I'm not struggling to get her to go to concerts. I'm struggling to say, can you just stop going to concerts? You're going to too many concerts.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, the few times it was MSO playing one program and I was like, cool, I went on the Friday. I'm going on the Monday. I went on the Thursday, going on the Saturday as well. I saw Victoria Mullova play Sibelius Concerto, and then I looked on the MSO website, and there happened to be a special on tickets for the Monday's concert, a ticket right up close to the stage, and I was just like, I'm doing it. So I went on the Monday. So this particular Messiah, like that weekend, I think it was one where I was just like, I think it was a work thing. I had a lot of work, and I just went, look, I want to, but I did already see like 50 concerts this year, mainly MSO. I'm sure it'll be okay. You know, I'm sure it's fine. You know?
Well, look, you know what Sir Andrew's like. He is basically the perfect conductor.
Everything I've seen him conduct, I've adored. And when he conducted Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony, I think it was last year, it was just like, I just find no fault in what he does.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've just, yeah.
And actually, my favourite thing about him is not all of those things anyway, because that for me is you've just got to be charismatic, and you've got to be smart, and you've got to be on top of the orchestra, because the orchestra is basically a bunch of mutineers on a potentially sinking ship the whole time. So you've got to really watch orchestral players, because they are quite stifled, constantly stifled by a lack of creative decision making.
Okay, you've said a couple of things that I want to direct this thing back, because you said before Sir Andrew does more than just conducting. He composes and he arranges. So one of my questions was, is there more to creativity in the classical world besides composing, which I know we just spoke about programming and things, but what about arranging? Because I know a very, very popular arrangement of Mussorgsky's pictures at exhibition is the Ravel arrangement that was not written by Ravel. If people didn't know that, it's actually written for piano.
Yeah, that's orchestration though. Yeah, exactly.
And the Julian Yu arrangement.
Yeah.
There's like of that piece alone, there's so many arrangements of it.
Yeah.
So is that creative to take, yes, it's somebody else's music and you've re-envisioned it?
Well, it's very similar to conducting, isn't it? It's you've got the creative work there, and you're just realizing it or re-realizing it or changing a little bit, but it's still recognizable as the thing that it started as. Just like pictures at an exhibition, that's a really good one. Arguably the orchestral version is much better because it's much more interesting, heaps more colors, but Ravel was an absolute master at that. You could get some other terrible composer arranging pictures at an exhibition, it would just sound awful. So
but is it creative and skill to go, here's the music on the page for piano, and I envisioned that opening motif on trumpet instead of piano.
Yeah.
And I can hear the orchestra playing it before the orchestra's even played it. It's not my music. I didn't compose it.
Yeah.
But there it is. I've been able to arrange it. And I've heard it more times with the orchestra than I have any pianist play it.
So it's hard to make a value judgment because you're just used to one instead of the other. That is a really hard question. But again, you're talking about composers who do the arranging. You can't really arrange unless you can compose, in a sense. I mean, I know that's a big sweeping generalization, but if you are an arranger, it's probably 99% of a chance that you are a composer as well. So, yeah, that it goes back to what I said before. I think the person creating the work is the fully creative one. And then the people who realize that, who pull it off the paper and make it come to life, they can also be creative, but it's to a lesser extent, I think. And then to an even lesser extent are all of us in the orchestra trying to help the creative force, which at that moment is the conductor, trying to help that person to bring it to life. And the more creative input we have, the more time is wasted, the more arguments happen. Like at some point,
it's a job.
Yeah,
the job is to play through that piece. You've got concerts. The conductor's the one leading it. That's just, again, the reality of like the job, basically.
And I used to be really awful in orchestra, like really awful. There are so many people out there who would say, "Yeah, she was really awful."
She was really awful.
I wouldn't care that it was insubordinate to go straight up to front desk and say, "Why are we doing that bowing? That it's different over there the first time it happens." I mean, I was just unbearably awful, but I'd had a lifetime of not being punished for being really arrogant. So, your personality gets pretty set by the time you're in your 20s.
So your punishment to be a tutti player?
Oh, actually, no. I think my...
third desk for you inside. Turn the page.
Hey, I like turning the pages. It gives my abs a little bit of a workout.
It's more of a page roll, so it's quieter.
Anyway, basically, I've learnt that it is so much better to be a working cog in the machine if that outcome is everyone working together, rather than a whole bunch of nitpicky middle-aged pains in the butt say every thought that comes to their head. I mean, I'm ashamed of my behaviour throughout, but it is, I think, because I'm a creative person as well, whose creativity doesn't get realised in the orchestra. That's all. And I think a lot of people feel the same way.
I'm sorry if this has turned into a bit of a therapy session.
All right. Do we have another question, Annabel?
Yeah, well, we haven't really talked. We've talked about the creativity in the orchestra setting,
yep,
which I think we can establish. Well, I'm not going to rehash that. But what about in the classical repertoire? Is there any aspect of the classical repertoire that's creative?
I think we covered it all. Basically, it's a grey area. It's if you're the principal oboe, you have much more.
No, I don't think orchestra. Think violin because you're a violinist.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So it goes back to what I was saying about conductors as well. For example, if I'm the sort of person that thinks the solo Bach sonatas are for me to express my personality through, then yeah, I have 100% creative control over that. But unfortunately, for my mental well-being, I'm not that person. I do not believe that my personality needs to come through the solo partitas and sonatas of Bach. What I want to do is try and imagine what it might have sounded like back then and why, and try and learn about that. So I'm a slave to the page, probably in a bad way, because you can't prove it or disprove it. I mean, you have lots of clues. You know, you have the bows that they used, you have the strings that they used, you have the instruments that they used. But at the same time, you don't really understand how people were feeling 400 years ago. They didn't think about things.
Wasn't early music and Bach, there was more freedom on the page to ornament and, you know, do your own thing on the page. That's why the bare minimum is really written on it.
Yeah. So unusually, Bach put his own slurs in, and there's a theory that his wife actually did that. But either way, that was unusual for every bar to have the slurs marked in. So we can decide whether we are so creative that we can play it any way we want to according to our mood that day. And that's a kind of creativity. Or we can be creative in the sense that, okay, I want to try and delve into that period and bring this music to life again as I imagine it would have been back then. So it's still a realization rather than a creative. I'm not writing the music. I'm just trying to realize it. I'm trying to get it off the page, and I'm trying to imagine. And that satisfies me a lot, actually, because the more I do that, the more amazing the music becomes. But if I just leave it as an expression of my own personality, I find that I'm quite a dull person. Actually, I don't have that much imagination. I'm not a composer. I'm not that, 100% creative person. But if I use my skills of interpretation based on more and more knowledge as the years pass, that satisfies me. So is it satisfying me because creativity is also an emotional response to the arts? I mean, maybe emotion's got to come into it here. If you feel like you're sitting at a desk churning out paperwork all day, which sometimes orchestra can feel like that, rehearsing a bar over and over again and it's not getting better. You do feel like you're a bit of a workhorse, and you have sort of the life sucked out of you sometimes. And it's really grueling. It's really difficult. It's physically hard and it's mentally tiring. But if I sit there and think about the first 3 bars of the G minor sonata by Bach, or I go through it with a student, this is my favorite thing to do. Is it creativity? I don't know, but it's emotionally satisfying having creative control over something. And in those 2 different ways, like I said before, you're either expressing yourself or you're trying to express the period of time it was written or the composer's intentions. So it's pretty much, I know it's grey. It's all very complicated. It's all grey. But at the end of the day, I guess what's come out of this so far is that you either think it's your responsibility as a performing artist to express yourself, or it's your responsibility to express the music and the composer and what the composer wants. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. And you can apply that to whether you're working in chamber or solo or teaching or, at the back of the second violins. You can still have a philosophy about it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, do you have anything to say about that? Did I miss anything?
Oh, I'm just, you mean, it's only audio today, so people can't see that I've got my thinking face on because you've left me thinking.
Your scowl.
No, that's just a genuine, look, I'm going to get frown lines really soon and I'm not even 30. So,
I painted my frown lines into my Bitmoji. If
your
anyone...
Bitmoji is so fantastic. Nothing compares.
Same with
It's
yours.
just- no, I didn't even know what Bitmoji was. I'd never heard of it. I just get one out of the blue from you one day, and I was in the practice room at uni, and I was in tears, crying. It was that funny, and out of the blue, and I was like, "It looks exactly like you." Yes, I figured that out, and then it is so like you. It was just unbelievable. And I'm still...
memes are creative, and you make the best memes of anyone I've ever seen. I don't even know how to make a meme. You make such great memes. You know, if anyone is interested in our meme collection, then just go to the Facebook page. They're all there. Well, they're not all there. They're coming. They're coming soon when we can get back to video. Page.
But see, and then sort of what I said before, I was like, yeah, I'm creative, but I don't even realize that yes, I am, and no, I'm not in other aspects. It's because of that whole can envision something. I mean, I'm not a composer, so I don't see myself like that. But yeah, I mean, memes is a really, really dumb example.
No,
but,
it's a fantastic example.
Envisioning something and then you create it. But it goes back to memes aside, just me wanting to work with my hands and not be on it in a desk and I just swore.
You can cut it out.
I'll have to. Yeah, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just that need to not. Oh yeah, I just have to do something different with my day to day.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't, because I don't think like other people. When people say that they do their Monday to Friday 9 till 5, I know it's good for them, but I'm bored just hearing about it.
Yeah,
so I'm
and
like, I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you're happy and you love your job. That makes me happy. I don't want to be anywhere near that kind of work. I'm sorry. It's just I have to do other things. I have to do different things. Yeah.
And also, you're a typical musician in the sense that you don't switch off at 5 p.m. You don't have that kind of, that body clock is telling me to switch off and now I can watch Netflix for 5 hours. I mean, you and I talk well into midnight most days on this project. You know, you don't switch off very easily, and that's a typical musician.
I did on Sunday. You probably got a little bit annoyed on Saturday and you're like, I'm not thinking about this all of Sunday. So I went, fine. I didn't answer your emails. I didn't talk to you until Monday. And then you told me that, no, that's all you thought about on Sunday.
I know.
I had a great Sunday. I was just like, yeah, she's right. Just switch off. Don't look at my emails. I'm just going to have a quiet day. Did some great practice, just relaxing.
So it is hard to be disciplined, and, creativity doesn't really come out of chaos either. You have to be somewhat organized. And if it's a relentless, continuous, strenuous activity, then nothing's going to come out except mental illness. So yeah, we have to be a bit more disciplined about our splitting hairs interaction. That's for sure. All right. So what else happens when you can't be creative in your job? Well, that wasn't one of your questions. That was one of my questions. So we're talking about hating your job. So then I don't hate my job. I'm just referring to those people who do the 9 to 5 and within that, those ones who really do hate their job. So what ends up happening is they save their money and they spend it on things that are absolutely unrelated to their profession. Because they hate the job, so they just want to do something completely different. And for me, that's commissioning composers to create music. And so
I think that's past tense. When was the last time you commissioned a work, Sarah?
Well, I've turned to books and book editing and stuff now. So yeah, but my only point is, if you're stifled in your own workplace, then it's actually an opportunity and a chance, and you're forced to do something in your spare time which brings you that satisfaction. So if anyone's listening who feels really just so bad about the job that they have to work, especially now, you're lucky to be employed now, and you probably hate your job and you don't have a chance to quit now, but what are you going to do in your spare time? And look, I love Netflix as much as the next person, but try and do something which, even if it's just baking a cake, because you and I talked about, is baking a cake creative? Well, maybe it is a way for you to release that feeling that you've been stifled in some aspect of your life. Why not get into that kitchen and see what comes out?
If you really do, maybe you've just come to realize, me learning this violin concerto isn't creative. I'm playing music on a page. There's still so much, joy in playing music and stuff, but go and put a concert together, you know.
Yes.
A friend of mine at uni, who's like, I always wanted to conduct. So he just asked all of us to catch up, rehearse some music, and we poured on a concert. We've done it twice now. And that was just so much fun. It was just in the initiative. So take initiative. If you want to go and do something creative, even go and try. If you're not a composer or something, you know, there's no stopping you from just trying.
Oh, absolutely. Get onto
GarageBand.
GarageBand. Make an electronic music track. You know, anyone can do it now. Just see if you do have that urge. See if you do make those great creative decisions, and all of a sudden you have a pop track right there. You know, you never know what's going to come out unless you try.
Yeah, and it's you work in an orchestra full time, and we said that's really you're a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
In that setting. So even though that's something that you love doing, I think.
Yeah, I pride myself on being able to do it. I do love it. I actually do. Yeah.
But there's other things, and that's what I've noticed about a few people that I've met in the professional setting, in the professional performing setting, I should say. They have other things going on as well, because you can do more with that,
And then there are some people who are exactly the opposite. They get their whole world is about playing in a symphony orchestra. They do not have any feelings of dissatisfaction. They are so happy with their position, their input. They don't need anything more than that. And that is great. They're the people we need to fill the jobs that the creative people will just die if they're stuck in a position like that. So yeah, your attitude has a lot to do with whether you're satisfied.
But if you are one of those people that is, and we can talk about specifically in an orchestra or any sort of workplace setting where you may love that job or not, but if you're the creative type that feels stuck because you can't do anything creative in that job, like I just said before, find another thing to do.
Absolutely, it is up to you.
And
no one's gonna hand you your dream life. You have to find it yourself. And whether it's a creative life or a cog in the machine life, then that's fine. It's totally up to you.
Totally.
Cool.
So I don't know if I'm somewhat satisfied with now I think about the creative classical world. I don't think I have such a black and white answer.
Yeah. I know, and you thought that maybe I would be black and white about it. I mean, thinking about the topic makes me sort of refine what I already thought, but I don't even think the answer is giving everyone creative control in a big group. I think you just have, as a good leader, you have to recognize those people who have something extra to offer and try and give them a chance to show it. 'Cause it's not everyone who wants to do that, but it's some people. And
yeah, it's what you said, personality based as well.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any more questions, Annabel?
Do I have any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the MSO resumes their concerts, hopefully in 2021, after this Corona thing goes away, can I have some comp tickets? Because I've missed out on everything this year except for the Sydney Myer Music Bowl concerts, and I'm struggling.
Okay, I'm going to tell everybody right now that I have offered Annabel so many comps, and she says, I've already got mine. I've already bought mine. I've already bought mine.
Yeah, but you know what I say? I'll take it anyway and I'll find someone else who wants it. And I've given so many tickets to people that have never been to an orchestra concert before. I've never heard a violin concerto, and I said, good, you're the person I like taking. I've got my friends that, my classical friends, that we sit and we talk in depth about this stuff that everybody around us goes, no, okay, I just can't. They're talking about that again. But then I've got friends that would just go and just love the atmosphere and the music, and they might not know the in-depth knowledge about the Elgar cello concerto when it's being performed or something, but to sit there and listen to it. And then I've taken people that, just like I said, never have been before. Great. That's why I might have bought my ticket, but I'll take any comps I can get and find people to come.
Yeah, when I was in Hong Kong, I used to collect people from bars and clubs who were by themselves, because Hong Kong was full of business travellers who didn't have any friends in Hong Kong, so they're just stopping by. And I always used to feel really sorry for people who are standing in bars by themselves. Like if you're in Australia and you see someone standing bar by themselves. You don't go near them because it's really dodgy, because people in Australia go out in groups, as we all know. But in Hong Kong, it's really common to see people by themselves. So I would always go up to them and say, hey, I play in the Hong Kong Philharmonic. Do you want to come to a concert? And we wouldn't get comps, but we'd get really cheap tickets, like say $5 per staff ticket. And these people would be like, oh my God, wow, that'd be really great. And so I would just constantly be bringing these complete strangers to concerts that were only in town for 2 or 3 days. It was fantastic. And like you say, a lot of them had never been to a symphony orchestra concert before. And
that goes to what I said before about I don't have a memory of not playing an instrument. I don't have a memory where I wasn't going to concerts.
Yeah, it's such a part of your life.
My parents would have a babysitter, and then my parents would have their date night, and they'd go to MSO, and then when we were older they would take Emily and I, and that was our weekend thing. We'd get dressed up, we'd go to the Sydney for dinner, we'd go to an MSO concert, and then we'd come home. Well, not just MSO, any concert, but that was the main one because that's every weekend pretty much.
Yeah, well, I really hope it gets back to normal because, you know, there are kids like you everywhere whose first chance at seeing a symphony orchestra is probably going to change their life.
Yeah, and you know, it's so accessible to go. And then that's why I really love the Sydney Myer Bowl concerts, especially because just everyone and their mother turns up and their 3-year-old kid that cries, which is perfectly okay at the bowl. I'm perfectly fine with that. But at Hamer Hall, no, I'm that person that just goes, well, you can't see my face right now, but
I am too. I think if you've got kids, there are loads of kids concerts that you can bring their kids to, but don't bring them to Hamer Hall unless they're asleep, you know. But don't even bring them then. Let them sleep in their own bed. Get a babysitter, you know. Well, anyway, I think we've pretty much covered everything about creativity today, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So, good job.
Thanks. That was a great wrap up.
Oh yeah, let's wrap this up. Just a quick note.
Yep.
Not to you, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
But to all of the 8 listeners. Iqbal, we're working on getting proper subtitles. That's some feedback that we had that I definitely took on board. And we will be releasing audio on an audio platform for just the podcast there at some point as well. We are thinking of this. As soon as we released our first video, and as soon as we actually started recording our first video, it was always like, right, fix that, tweak that. We should do this. We should do that. All right, we're going to release it here. What type of videos do you want? How do you want to edit it? It's been a constant, like tying up one loose end, then going to the next one and the next one and the next one, and it's just constantly something that we're working on.
And then stage 4, lockdown measures happened again.
And then we had to think about, all right, how do we do this? We can do this, remotely, which we're doing now. And then we just said it's just easy to do just the audio. But we're already thinking about when we get back to being in person, what we've got planned. So I just like that it's just a constant evolving thing that we've got going on here.
Yeah, I think people appreciate that. Yep. We can only get better. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
All right.
And we're on Facebook and Instagram, and if you want to see all those memes that we mentioned before.
Oh, the memes are so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I posted one and it was specifically about a Boeing meme, but somebody interpreted it as like, oh, that's just that really high bit from Don Juan. And I'm like,
no.
Oh, no. So
they're going to have their minds blown. We're going to do Boeings and how they've ruined music, and stay tuned too for the next audio only maybe, or YouTube maybe, History of the Violin. Yeah, so that's great.
More coming up.
More coming up. And we are out.
Done.